Old artwork. Monstrosities we've created that we never want to look at again, but like that's exactly what I'm gonna be doing today. Not only that, I'm going to be trying to make it look less worse than it already is. So let's do that. Mini vlog time. You can tell I don't really have a lot of old artwork. That's because I moved a lot. Bro, I swear in art only had trash assignments. Edgy. Actually, this is my first ever chibi. As you can tell, I was only really interested in drawing anime. And this was when anime wasn't even popular, so you had to keep it on the down low that you were watching it, bro. I literally only drew screen captures. Young mangaka on the rise. Not feeling any of these artworks, so let's go through my old digital artwork. Wait a minute, what's this? I like this sketch. It has a lot of energy, very dynamic. I feel like I could fix this up and make it into something better. So my thought process was to make this piece better, I just need to make it more anatomically correct because it had a few errors. But by doing that, I just took away the initial energy that I liked in the sketch, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. So I eventually started over. And I think it just goes to show sometimes trying to make things more correct can really take away from a piece. For example, the hand in this piece, if you try to bend your thumb like that, it can't make that move. It's not like I'm saying anything new here, but I just kind of had to remind myself that it's okay to break the rules, because I usually like to keep my style close to realism as possible with some subtle exaggeration. Next, I'm just trying to figure out whatever mess of a hair I put on his head, and I'm struggling to choose between Mob or his brother, but I end up going with the Mob because that's who I intended to draw. I've actually changed my workflow. Instead of going straight into flats, I block in my shadows first because it helps me know what the final result will look like way sooner. I think doing the oral is my favorite part. Just playing around with the shapes and the flowiness of the oral is just so much fun. Low-key, the eraser is the most underrated tool. The way you can just cut into shapes, it just makes it so much more dynamic. 2022, we're really drawing hands, man. Like, the hand is right in the camera. There's no hiding any imperfections, so you know I had to make it look proper. Shout out Cutie Cosmo, they're definitely an inspiration. Now I'm just adding the final touch-ups. I add motion blur to the front, and voila. Let's do another one. I felt guilty for doing my boy Denji like this, so I'm gonna have to do him justice. This is gonna be less of a redraw and more of a makeover of sorts. Basically an entirely different piece. First started off with some stick figure thumbnails and then chose my favorite pose. And man, let me tell you, this piece was especially challenging for me because today I was just not feeling anatomy. I just couldn't draw a human body to save my life. And it's perfectly normal to have days like that. I don't have them too often, but when I do have them, I have them. So I ended up taking some reference photos myself to help me with the anatomy, and it really helped for Denji, but for Makima, unfortunately, I'm not a woman, so it didn't really help me that much. And I was struggling with Makima's pose till the very last second of the piece, so yeah. I was a bit indecisive about Denji's pose, specifically his arm. I didn't know if I wanted it to be a struggle, him pushing against her face while she crushes his face, or if I wanted the chainsaws out in both hands. But I went with the latter because it just made more sense. Now for the dreaded background. Of course, I did more work and I made 2 separate backgrounds because I was just so indecisive. I didn't know if I wanted it to be in Makima's room or where the original battle took place, but I ended up going with the original battle because I had a certain idea in mind. Now before I render, I'm just adding some bounce light from the sky onto the white grass and onto the 2 characters. And now that I think of it, I definitely forgot to add the bounce light from the grass onto the bottom of their pants, but hey, these are the things you always seem to see after you're done with the piece, so I'm basically used to it at this point. And while I'm rendering, I'm using my favorite new tool called Color Jitter, which subtly adds hue shifts, and it's just chef's kiss. And if you haven't seen my last video, which you should, I kind of explain how it works. Now I'm just using a grass brush to block in majority of the distant grass. But the grass you see in the foreground and middle ground, I hand painted every single one of them, so yeah. That's because I really wanted my grass to look like Kentaro's Mira's grass from Berserk. Because have you seen how it looks? Now the crosses were looking janky, so I made one perfect one and copy pasted all over. And don't worry, they're stylistically 2D on purpose. And I can't forget the bounce light from the sky and atmospheric perspective as they get further away. They kind of just like blend in with the sky basically. And from here on out, it's just me rendering, which I actually don't hate as much as I used to. Like I'm at the stage where I learned enough of the basics where I could start trying to focus on honing my own style, just make my own style more consistent, because it literally just changes every post that I do. I just need that recognition, be able to finally start growing. Join the Discord if you haven't already. We have a positive community. Always love you guys. Peace.